Each summer, it gets harder and harder to keep cell phones out of daily camp life. How do we teach our staff to ignore that knee jerk reaction to always reach for our phones? Let's talk about it. Running camp should be about people, not paperwork. UltraCamp helps you manage staff, registration, and communication in one place, so you spend less time on tasks and more on camp. Find out more at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Welcome to Camp Code, a podcast brought to you by Go Camp Pro. We have been podcasting for 11 seasons and knew we needed to continue. Why? Because just like people grow and change, so does our industry. So here we are, ready to discuss new challenges, new ways of handling situations, new advice from those doing the work, and new ideas to help us do our jobs better. Our commitment to intentional leadership training just grows stronger every year. So join us for season 12 of Camp Code as we once again do all that we can to help you develop your best leadership training. Welcome, Gabrielle. As always,
Hi.
we will start with introductions. So away you go.
Yes, well, at camp, most people call me Gabs. I go by she, her, elle. And Camp Oro is an all-girls camp where we focus on creating a positive environment for gender minorities in French and English.
Perfect. And for those of you who often wonder why Gab says she, her, elle, elle would be the French pronoun. And of
It
course, they
is.
are a bilingual camp.
Oui,
All
oui.
And I'm Beth Allison. I'm co-owner of Camp Hacker and Go Camp Pro, and my pronouns are she, her, elle. I am a camp consultant and trainer, and I'm somebody who eats, sleeps, and drinks staff training. I like to see opportunities everywhere I go, in a coffee shop, in a restaurant, walking down the street. I write them down, and I keep them for next season's trainings or for a podcast. So here we go. We're going to chat today about the dreaded cell phone. For many directors, it has been the bane of our existence, as each year, particularly post-COVID lockdowns, our staff are just, and us too, let's be honest, spending more time online. And there is great debate in the camp community about whether or not phones should be allowed at camp during time with campers. Many are regulating when staff and campers can have their phones. You know, for staff, it's only during hours off, or for campers, it might just be rest hour each day. Others are experimenting with just letting them have their phones on and with them whenever they wish. And still others are banning them at camp altogether. So what do we do? How can we help them and us to unlearn the behavior of always reaching for the phone the second something else is not grabbing our attention?
Yeah.
So I'll start off. I've been thinking about this a lot, and doing this podcast, I've created a session I'd like to do next year. But for me,
That does happen to you when you
it does.
whatever
It
shows.
does.
You're like, I've got a great session.
So for me, the antidote to phone grab at camp isn't punishment or shame. It's purpose, presence, and connection. So that being said, here are some things that I would do. So I would make off phone time part of your culture and not just a rule. So if no phones feels like a restriction, people tend to resist because they don't like being told what to do, because everybody's telling us all what to do these days. And if it feels like belonging to something special, they join in. So one of the ways I would deal with this is to celebrate that unplugged life. So you could run like a disconnect to reconnect challenge or something like that, where cabins or teams earn points for creative phone-free fun. You could post photos taken by a camp photographer of the day so that nobody feels pressure to document all those moments, so they don't need to carry their phones around with them. You could share testimonials from returning staff. You know, like somebody might get up and say, you know, the summer that I put my phone away, I actually slept better. I laughed more. I felt like I belonged. I would replace maybe scroll time with something, I don't know, catchier, like soul time. I don't know, pick up whatever you want. But you can fill those quiet moments that usually trigger phone use with something that feeds that same need. So either rest or reflection or a small joy. So, like, you could do some mindful mini moments where you're doing some grounding practices with your camp. So, if you're all together, say at the climbing wall, and you're ready for your cabin group to get on the climbing wall, you could say, okay, we're doing a nature scan. And I want you to stand still for 1 minute and name 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 you can touch, 1 you can taste or imagine, like all those kinds of things. You could do some breathing rituals with people, like deep inhale, hold for 4, exhale for 6, repeat 3 to 5 times. I had one camp that did a sun or a moon ritual. So they would get together and pause and then just feel the warmth of the sun or notice the night sky just for a minute. Or like have a camp gratitude pause where everybody just silently names one thing about camp that made them smile today. So you're having them think of things outside of this little phone thing here that is bringing them some joy. You can also do like little connection bursts. So I used to do these all the time at Morning Flag. Like, all right, find somebody and genuinely compliment them today at some point, or high five or have fist bump circles where, that small energy before an activity starts kind of gives them that a little bit of dopamine. You can have mini story swaps where they pair up 2 to 3 minutes and share a funny or meaningful camp moment with somebody else, or calling out something positive that you notice about another staff member. So maybe you do that at a staff meeting or something. And it keeps attention on each other and not on the devices. So I've got a few more, but that's kind of where I'd start. What about you, Gab?
I really like that, Beth. I think like I particularly like the no shame piece. I think most
Hmm.
people feel shame when they're on their phone
I do.
anyways. Yeah, I do
I do.
too. I think for me, I think we have to look at also the needs of the organization. So I
Hmm.
know we have quite a few pals that are camp directors of day camps. This is a whole other beast and monster of its own. A lot of day camps need their staff to have their phones. It's
Yeah.
easier in some ways to take pictures for families, for communication because they're far from their site. There's reasons why people have cell phones. And then for sleepaway camps, I know that for us, COVID was the big shift where we allowed more cell phones for our staff for a similar reason. We didn't have necessarily photographers going around. We had,
Mm.
the dreaded pods, flashbacks. I don't want to go back, but I do remember we were near, I think it was 2023. We were still in a haze of some of the poor habits that we gained through, well, I would
Yep.
say there are survival habits, to be honest. So not going to nick anybody for those habits that we developed throughout COVID, but it was like the final play or skit. And I think it was 2023 or 2022. And there was a staff member that had her phone and she was on Instagram and she was just scrolling. And I'm telling you, Beth, I was like, I want to quit now. I'm going to quit now
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I don't want to be a police officer and tell people to put it away. And like, I can't judge her for it. Like, to be honest, the skit wasn't the best. So I get it, but but what are we doing? So I think organizationally wise, one of the things that we did, and I've mentioned it before, but it really has made a difference, is we purchased refurbished phones for different programs on camp, like dance and drama and evening programs. I think we have 6 or 7 of these phones. We have a station to charge them. We sign them out. They can take pictures. We have our pre-approved playlists are already downloaded on them. We always have funny, weird. The screensavers always end up like the backdrops always end up being weird because staff will take pictures and then post pictures of their friends on those phones, and I think that's funny. So it builds community in that way.
Yeah.
And but it and they're in they I bought some gaffer's tape, and for people that don't know what gaffer's tape is, that's tape that doesn't leave residue afterwards. It's
Mm.
expensive, but you can put it on phones. So all of those phones have a fluorescent orange piece of tape that goes on it. And then my phone has it, or other The director has it, and then our healthcare team and 2 other people that are on our team have that orange tape. So I can see a mile away, and they can see that if I'm looking at them, whatever they have in their hands, I can tell if it's a camp phone or not a camp phone. So it creates
Ah,
that little
okay.
personal barrier of, like, I don't wanna be caught with my phone. And so at Waro, because we're a sleepaway camp, we really don't need our staff members to have their phones. We have a media team that's fantastic. Shout out to our media team from last summer, amazing. We have these devices that can fill the needs. There's no need for them to use the phone. And if you're able to do that, I think that is it's going to set you off on the right foot. Now, when you start camp, people go through a form of detox when they don't have their phones. So we really work on there's what we call like elasticity period, which is when you come to camp, we have, I think, probably 3 or 4 waves of people that come in for training. The first wave is leadership team. So they have to practice putting up their hair, wearing the right shoes, wearing their hats, having their water bottles, and not having their phones. I'll give them friendly reminders, but I'm not strict on it. It's kind of they know what they need to do. But when the next wave comes in, which is our activity coordinators, that group, they are on it. They need to, you have your hat, you have your water bottle, your phone is nowhere to be seen. And they know that they're role modeling for that group. And so the activity coordinators, when they come in, we're very clear and tell them this is your elasticity time, practice it. But when the resource staff comes, you need to be those role models, just like the leadership team members are being the role models. And wearing your hat, as silly as it sounds, is almost just as important as not having your phone. So it's not
Mm.
anymore a relationship about the phone. And they also, obviously, in our interviews, we talk very it's part of the thing of why do you want to be part of an unplugged program? What do you think you're going to struggle with? How can we support you? This is what it's going to look like if we do see you with your phone. And then lastly, we do have a cell phone daycare at the office with those other devices, and staff do use it. They can drop off their phone in the morning, we charge it for them, they can get it at night, and there's different times of the day that they can have it, before the campers wake up, during siesta, after lunch or rest hours, some people call it, and then after the campers go to bed. They can have their phones out during those times, but campers can never, ever see them, and that one we're pretty clear
Mm,
on that.
mhm.
So we have to understand, different organizations are gonna have different needs,
Yep.
but if you try to put in tools so that we're not depending on staff. If you really wanna go cell phone free, quote unquote, or, where there's different times that they really can't have them and then can, let's see if we can get some tools put in place so that they don't need their cell phones during that time, and it's worked for us. I haven't seen anybody really scroll on Instagram and except at nighttime, and to be honest, they show me very funny videos, and I love it, so it's great. Or TikTok, I should say.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for that, Gabs. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our amazing sponsor, and we'll be right back. For Camp Code listeners, unlock UltraCamp's operations checklist for new directors, a free download to help you prepare for a smooth season. Find it at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Running camp comes with countless moving parts. UltraCamp helps you stay on top of them. Organize activities and daily schedules, manage wait lists and cabin assignments, automate billing and payments, centralize all camper and staff info in one place. With UltraCamp, camp operations run smoother, so directors can lead with confidence. Book your free customized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Okay, we are back and we're talking about cell phone use and how we can kind of stop our staff from just having that reaction. It's almost muscle memory for us now, where in any moment of silence or quiet or the first hint of boredom for 1 second, they reach for their phones. We all do it. So, what can we implement at camp to make that not so necessary or feel so necessary, I suppose? So, In addition to all those things I talked about earlier, I have, I don't know, I have a list of about 20 things that you could do to have these little micro bursts of celebration, and I'll put those in the show notes, okay? But the important thing about them is to make it optional but visible. So, like, staff are more likely to join in if it's light and inviting. So, whatever you're doing, if you're starting these during training, these little micro bursts, keep them short. Like 2 to 3 minutes is enough to break that scroll reflex. Maybe you have like a ritual, like a bell or a chime or a special whistle that signals, hey, it's soul time. So we're going to do something else, and keep rotating those ideas. You don't want to do like the same one every day because that's going to create boredom in itself. So I'll print the rest of those I'll put them in the show notes. But I would also do something exactly like what Gav was just talking about giving phones that purposeful place. So instead of banning phones, you're containing phones. So you want to create those healthy phone habits that have structure. So tech baskets in staff places, or, places where the phone goes during meals or programs or community time. So you have certain times where phones are just off limits, and then have those phone windows where it's okay to use them. And you have to model leadership buy-in. So if the director's phone stays away while all the others are supposed to, so will the staff's. And if you can't, if you look at your phone, you have a call from a parent that you've been waiting for all day, you have to explain, I'm so sorry. I know this was time that we weren't going to use our phones, but I absolutely had to answer this call from a parent, and then leave the space. The big thing that I would do during training is to teach why this urge exists. So, doing training that names the psychology of phone use empowers awareness. So, you could call it like the dopamine loop, why we scroll and how to stop. And you could make it really funny and camp like. But we need to help staff understand why they reach for the phones, what it costs them and the campers, and how to replace that reflex with connection and presence. So you could try a role playing game where you say, okay, you're the phone, I'm the camper, convince me why you're more interesting. Or talk about the difference between FOMO and JOMO. So JOMO, of course, is the joy of missing out. So you want to talk about that. What joy do you get in missing out of certain things? You could play like the phone reflex game, not technically a game, but have everybody stand in a circle and say, I'm going to say a few everyday camp scenarios. And if your instinct would be to check your phone in that moment, I want you to raise your hand. So something like, you're waiting for your campers to finish brushing their teeth. So how many staff would be like, yep, I would have this instinct to reach for my phone. Or you're on your 10-minute break right after lunch, or you're walking between activities. And then talk about with them what makes us reach for our phones in these moments. Capture those answers, like put them on a big sheet so you can keep them maybe in the staff lounge or something. But the answers they're going to give you are things like boredom or habit or wanting connection. So you need to think about that. Build awareness that the phone use is often automatic and not intentional. Like, that's the point of that. You could talk about the dopamine loop. So our brains love those little hits of reward, like we get when somebody posts or sends a text. But that same dopamine system keeps us scrolling. It's the one that helps us connect in real life. So if we are not scrolling, if we are connecting with people in real life, we can get those same kinds of dopamine hits. And when we put our phones away at camp, we're not missing out. We're just switching to real in-person connection. So, there's lots of different things that you can do. Pair up your staff, phone versus camp. One person's the phone trying to tempt the other, who's a counselor. They have 60 seconds to persuade them. And then your debrief is what makes the phone so convincing and what makes camp better. So you're really just like bringing all of this out so that they understand why you're looking to reduce phone use at camp. Like, what's the point? You're not just doing it to be mean or any of those things, but there is a real purpose behind it. And then I think I'd end with some sort of brainstorm with your whole staff. Like, what can fill those moments when we usually reach for our phones? Or what brings you back to the present really quickly? And write those answers on a flip chart. Like, we could start a quick game with the campers, or we could write a thought in our journal, or we could turn and chat to another staff member. And then I think with saying, like, what is one phone habit we could change together? to make being here feel even better. So encourage them to come up with 2 to 3 camp norms, like, as I said before, the phones go away at meals or at unplugged hour or whatever you want to call it. But those kinds of things will make a difference. And affirming with them that phones are not bad, they're just a tool. So, like at camp, we trade pixels for people or some sort of something that you want to say. But the more present we are, the more magic that we make. So, I would be doing those kinds of things to help them understand why we reach for the phone, what we're looking for, and how we could replace those same kinds of feelings of wellness and happiness with in person interaction. All right,
I
Gab, what do you got?
I really like that. I was even thinking of, to add on to it, who are your search engines on the team, so
Oh,
having
yeah.
writing down all of your questions that you would have, and then try to find people that can answer those questions within the team. And the more search engines you find, the better you do, or something
I
like that.
love
So
that. Yeah,
it
yeah.
sort of
There's lots
inspired
you
me.
could play with.
I think the piece where I want to head into is a little fun part, which is Polaroids and what are they called? Disposable cameras and the old digital
Mhm.
cameras. So
Mhm.
so this year, I'm going through our tech stuff, as I love to do. I know, Beth, that's not your fave thing. I know that's more Travis's alley, but this is my
Definitely
little,
more Travis.
yeah. And when me and my teammate Alexandre Debier, we both geek out over these things. So we're going through our tech stuff, and we have a couple of old cameras, old digital cameras that we had, years ago. We're talking about pixels. These are like, 3 pixels. Like these are old
Yeah.
cameras, and we put them aside as we're, saying, okay, we need to donate these. We've got to get rid of them. And then a staff member was like, oh, can I borrow one of these cameras? Like, she absolutely has a phone. I was like, sure, you can borrow it. Like, because everybody's going swimming down. Like, I'd really like to take pictures with these. And I was like, yeah, these are really bad, digital cameras. Anyway, so she went down to the beach, took a bunch of pictures. This camera became the camera to pass around with the staff. And they're nostalgic for these older pictures that you can see the pixels in. And so Alexandre took these cameras, sort of tidied them up a little bit, made sure, we found all the battery packs that, charge them. And if somebody wanted to borrow these cameras, they did. And we started creating different ways of people being able to snap memories, and
Mhm.
having the disposable cameras. We'll be investing probably in Polaroid for next year. That's going to be, we know that Polaroid's expensive, the actual Polaroids,
Yes.
but doing something kind of fun with that. But there are other cameras that you can get that just print out the pictures in black and white immediately, and that doesn't cost very much. But I was thinking about my uncle way back when he quit smoking, and he he got the patches and the gums and all that kind of stuff, but nothing
Yeah.
was working. And my father was like, here's some lollipops. And he needed something to just be able to have in his hand and put in his mouth.
Mhm.
So of course he used the other stuff, but the lollipops is what helped him. And I think if you look at phone addiction, it takes approximately, obviously everybody's different. It depends on how addicted you are and what other behaviors, you've gathered from that addiction. But it takes between a week and 2 weeks for the chemistry in your brain to shift when you're away from your phone. So I think we have to, if we're trying to reduce phone usage, then I think it's helpful to have these replacement devices for fun. The other thing that we did, which was really is similar, is and this wasn't me that came up with it, it came organically, is some of my staff started doing TikTok dances just for each
Mm.
other and recording them. Like, who am I to get in the way of this joy? But there's something about TikTok that, where there's dances and fun things that you can do.
Yeah.
Why not just do it at camp? Why not do the TikTok dances? Why not do so? Trying to find the lollipops that phones do give people,
Mhm.
and try to make as many lollipop opportunities as possible, make it fun, have a good time, but also understand they're jonesing. They're jonesing for their
Yes.
phones. And
Yep.
honestly, so am I sometimes. Sometimes I'm in a session that I've heard 180 times, and I'm like, oh, I'm the camp director. I have my phone. I can just go on it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like no. But so yeah, find the lollipops for your camp and help your staff out if you can that way.
I love that. And bouncing off that, I'm going to say that you need to replace distraction with connection. So phones fill a connection void. If staff feel isolated or bored or awkward, their brains automatically reach for that dopamine hit. And when I say staff, I mean all of us. So we want to build those micro connections constantly. So things like daily check-in circles or temperature checks with your staff, or the buddy system that I've often talked about, where you have connection partners who notices when somebody's slipping away, either literally or mentally. Create third places. Now, I didn't know about third places until I was thinking about this podcast, but they're spaces where people naturally connect and belong that are not home or work or school. So the concept comes from sociologist Ray Oldenburg, and he said that people thrive when they have three key social environments. So the first one is home, so where you live and have your closest relationships. Your second place is work or school, so where you have structure and roles and responsibilities. And the third place, that's informal gathering spaces where you relax and chat and feel part of a community just because you're there. And at camp, third places are where staff can breathe and bond without needing to perform or supervise. So, for example, you could take your staff lounge and put in, a kettle and some lovely teas and cozy lighting. Or you could have a fire pit where staff could gather after hours, like when the campers are in bed, where they can just sit around and chill and talk to each other. You could take an old maintenance shed and put in some comfy chairs and music and have that playing. You could have a hammock circle or a coffee porch for early risers. We did that one year, and we did notice that we had lots of people at the beginning of the summer and very, very few people who were still early risers by the end. But they liked knowing that they could go somewhere, sit, have a morning coffee, watch the sunrise, or enjoy the sunrise before those kids got up. And these spaces help staff feel seen as human beings and not just employees. And when people have that strong third place connections, they reach for each other and not their phones during downtime. So, make sure you're doing those kinds of things. You could even have like a blanket library where you have like a bin of cozy blankets and a note that says, take one, read one, have a nap with one, whatever, and have some books and sketch pads or crossword puzzles. You can have fire circle nights where there's no agenda, no meeting, just low stakes time to tell stories or sing. Like you're just like once or twice a week. And of course, that's for sleepaway camps, but you're doing things that are creating those spaces. And make sure that you remember the other staff, like maintenance or kitchen people. You want to have those little nooks where they have natural hangout spaces during the day where maybe they can't go far because they've only got, a 15-minute break. Well, the jello sets or something. So you want to have a hangout space that has that as well. You could have a mini fridge with cold drinks. You could have a staff gratitude wall in there where people could write things that, who they're thankful for helping them out. You could do caught doing good and like pin up notes weekly of people that you saw doing really, really exciting things. I think that these kinds, like there's so many that we can come up with, and we're very creative people. You could have an art porch where like you have some old paints and some canvases or markers. And then, I mean, you could even have one that's like, make something ugly. So the rule is you can't make art that's meant to impress, you just express. So make whatever you want. And it doesn't have to mean anything. You don't have to talk about it. It's just you doing those sorts of things. I mean, you can create a physical playlist wall. So everybody writes down a song that matches their mood. And then people can hum it or sing it. No phones needed because now you all know. And maybe at the end of the summer, you could make an actual Spotify playlist to remember that summer by. But there's all kinds of those things. So for me, it's you want to name this place, like when you give it a name, like the nest or the den or something like that, I find people use it more. And you definitely want to signal belonging in these kind of places. So you could decorate it with staff photos or quotes or camper artwork. And you need to show up every so often. So, casually spending the time in some of these spots, you're sending that message that this is part of camp life. And protect it. My final point to that would be protect those spaces from staff meetings. So these are sacred social spaces. Not, you can't have to-do lists. If you have to talk to them about camp business, you have to do it somewhere else. But creating these connection spaces will help them to have those mini micro connections without worrying about getting them from their phones and finding out how great they can be to have them in person. All right, Gabs, what else have you got?
I love that. My last piece is maybe more looking at not falling into the trap of turning a blind eye. So my point here is that sometimes in our contracts it's written no phones, but
Mm-hmm.
it's gotten away from you. Maybe camp has evolved and you do require your staff to have phones. It's helpful for you for them to have phones, but then there's
Mm-hmm.
that poor behavior that we don't like that comes with it. We keep that in the contract. So if it's still in your contract and you allow phones anyways, change the contract and be specific with what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. I would also say that when you're interviewing people, if you do want to shift your culture, to make it very, very explicit what you're shifting,
Mm-hmm.
why you're shifting, and what tools are we putting in place. You can have some phones, that are fairly well developed. So Androids and iPhones have work settings. You can have your whole team remove their social media or not add the social media pieces to the work settings so that you do have just the camera, GPS, weather, text messages, and that becomes the tool. When is it appropriate to use social media? When is it not? I'd also look at some tools, as I mentioned in the first part, of can we replace some of these devices so they don't have to reach for them? But really ask yourself, what would you be losing if you didn't have phones? Is there anything that we can do to supplement that? And if not, then how can we shift our contract and our expectations of our staff members? So it goes back to your point, Beth, of not feeling shame.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that we sometimes as camp directors, we get into a little bit of it's hard and you don't know what to do and you're thinking my staff will never go for this. Then the truth is that then if that's your truth, if you truly believe that, then you might have to shift how you feel about how they use their phones. And as per usual, I always think it's best to bring in a small group of people to talk these things out that are already part of the team or closely linked to the team, but certainly have some representatives of the team and get to the heart of some of the issues, because there might be some reasons why this habit isn't being broken at your camp, and develop what can you do next. And hopefully some of the things that Beth and I are sharing today will be helpful, but sometimes it might be us. We might be the ones that shift. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I remember when we started doing slideshows at Camp Waro, and it was just pictures, no video. And when there was like a cool picture of somebody doing something cool, the camp would cheer. But the owner at the time, Madeline Allen, who I love as a grandparent, she told us to shush. We weren't allowed to cheer for a slideshow. So we all just watched it in silence
Oh no.
as we had like fun, like pop music in the background. And she was like, no, this is for appreciation. No cheer. So we just had to just sit there quietly and not do anything, which I understand why, because that's how we could do in plays. We had to be quiet and then we could cheer at certain moments. It was a different camp. It was a different time, but
It was a different time.
you might have to let go, Ferg, of
Yep.
Madeline Allen, of like, you might have to be the one that adjusts a little bit as well. So I think like take a pause,
Mm-hmm.
but make sure that your contract does reflect your expectations of your staff.
Great. Thank you. And on that note, it's time.
It's time, it's time, it's time. Okay, so Beth, guess what? There should be places for people and there should be places for phones.
Mm.
With phones, we could have tech baskets. We at Waro have a massive tower also in the staff lounge that I forgot to mention. There's also the cell phone daycare that's really, really helpful. But where can staff members place their phones? When we're
Hmm.
talking about phone addiction, what we're really talking about is lack of connection, anxiety. So why not create those spaces for people? And I love what you were talking about, Beth. First of all, you're also a branding genius, such as disconnect to reconnect, pixels for people. Like, I'm just like, come on now, the cozy circle. I'm like, yes, branding is
Travis
important.
would be so proud.
He would be. When you're trying to create these wonderful moments, I think branding is a brilliant idea. It does have to seem fun. It does have to seem cool. It does have to seem that it's for our staff members. So try to, can use your staff, like a small core of them, to help you create some of these really cool spaces and bring it into your staff training as well. Talk about the importance, have self-evaluations. How hard do you think it'll be for you to not have your cell phone if that's
Hmm.
the way you're going to do it? Or if you have a plan on their cell phones, how hard is it for me to not look at social media while I'm supposed to be looking at a map? These are all important parts, but start with your why. And you might have to reevaluate your organization, the tools that you're using, and see if there's something that you can replace those cell phones or those tools with something else. And then lastly, don't forget the lollipops. There's some fun things and community things that cell phones do bring, such as taking great pictures, doing dances. Can you reduplicate that in your camp, make it fun, and as well as it's relatable? It is the times. That's okay, but what we're trying to say is we want you to be present here and not present with your phone. How do we do that as a community?
Thanks, Gab. And that makes me think of Ruby, who used to have dance moments just randomly, and she'd shout out dance moment and put on some music, and everyone would just get up and dance for 2 minutes. And so, shout out to Ruby, and we miss you. Okay.
Yeah.
So, here's how you can get involved. You can let us know any of your thoughts on this episode or any episodes that we do, telling us topics that you'd like us to discuss or guests you recommend that we have on the show. We have a great one coming up. And what great leadership training tips you have to share. We would love to hear from you. And if you found our podcast to be useful, we would love it if you could leave us a rating or a review in your podcasting app. And Gab, how can they contact you if they would like to talk to you personally?
Well, they can get in touch with me at info@waro.com. Waro is OUAREAU.com. And you can also check out where I work at waro.com.
Thank you. I've known Gab for probably 30 years, and I still say OUAREAU out loud or in my head when I'm typing something. There's a lot of vowels.
So many
You
bells.
can email me at beth@gocamp.pro or find out about us at gocamp.pro, our website. For our next podcast, we will be learning from a very special guest, Diane Dubé, who will be teaching us how to have hard conversations. None of us need those, but we thought we'd talk about it anyway. So I think that'll be really great. And this week, our best practice is going to come from you, Gab.
Well, I'm excited to share something that I learned from one of my new leadership team members this year. She brought with her to camp a flip phone, and she says downgraded, but I think it's just going across the aisle really,
Mm.
where it has very limited amount of apps. It does have some apps like GPS, but you can't get your socials on it. You can't get anything else on it. And it gave me the idea of, for our camp phones in the future, we do have a cell phone that's where, we get all of our answers, talk to our parents and give them wonderful answers as they ask us so many great questions as parents do. And I loved the idea of having a flip phone because for me, it really showed the dedication to not being on social media. Because I think when we're talking about cell phones, we're not talking about the use of calling or texting somebody, and we're not talking about the use of cameras either. I don't think it's really social media. I think that is what
Mm.
sucks us in, or sometimes, as you say, Beth, like Google, where you prefer to ask the internet instead of somebody else. And so for me, I think if for camps that are trying to make a shift and do want to do the role modeling that you were talking about, Beth, as camp directors, to not have their phones around, I have been thinking about that a lot, and I don't feel great having my cell phone. So I think a maybe a little bit of a bypass is having a flip phone as your phone for the summer, if that's something that you're able to do, or as your camp's main phone. So that's just a thought, but it is something that I've been struggling with because I do need my phone on me all the time, and I do want a role model. And she brought hers to camp because she knew she was going to need a phone, but she didn't want to be addicted to it. And that's what she did. And I thought, that's brilliant. I'm going to adopt that and do it myself.
I love a staff member who comes thinking
Oh my
ahead
gosh.
of how they're going to make connections through the summer. That's amazing.
That's why
And
she's on the leadership team.
the other thing too with that is I know directors need their phones for parent calls, et cetera, and those kinds of
Yeah.
things, but we used to do it all back in the day without cell phones. And so think about walkie-talkies. Ways that you can connect with people can be another tool that you can use. Maybe the director
Yeah.
still needs to have a phone, but
Yes.
all of those other area directors may only need a walkie-talkie to connect with other parts of camp
We love our
when they're working.
walkie-talkies. Yeah. If
Yeah,
you ever want to know how we do like walkie-talkies and different channels and what our codes are and stuff, write us at Camp Code. I would be happy to chat with you because none of our leadership team members none of them use their phones. They have
right.
walkie-talkies. Just myself and a couple of the staff that need to talk to parents. But besides that, I'll be getting myself a flip phone.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, this was a fun conversation today, and we hope we've given you some stuff to think about and chew on. And if you have other ideas about how you do cell phones at your camp, we would love to hear those too. Camp Code is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network, and you can check out all our other podcasts at gocamp.pro/podcasts. So thanks for joining us today and for all the effort that you folks put into making staff training intentionally intentional. Thanks for the listening, friends.